The last sound little Ava ever made wasn't a cry, it was a whisper so faint her mother barely heard it, and by the time anyone realized what it meant, it was already too late. You can tell a tragedy not by the sound of a scream, but by the silence that follows it, and on that cold morning in Pinecrest, South Carolina, the silence after the scream was the kind that haunts people for the rest of their lives. It was the silence of a small child who would never cry again. At 7:42 a.m. a panicked man dialed 911, his voice cracking as he insisted something awful had happened, that little 3-year-old Ava Morgan had just fallen, that she wasn't breathing, that it was all just an accident. But the dispatcher later said she could hear something else in his voice, something tight and shaky, like fear wrapped in a lie. Pinecrest was the kind of small, peaceful town where people left bicycles on lawns overnight and waved at strangers walking dogs, a place where tragedy felt impossible, which made the loss of little Ava all the more devastating. Ava was sunshine wrapped in a tiny body, golden curls, bright blue eyes, and a laugh that made everyone around her light up. Her mother Lydia adored her, and her fiancé Evan Ward always seemed like the perfect father figure, attentive, gentle, patient. But inside the emergency room that morning, when paramedics rushed in with Ava's lifeless body, bruised and battered in ways no fault could explain, everything about Evan's calm reputation collapsed. He said she slipped from the couch, but doctors saw the truth before anyone spoke it. Ava's spine was damaged in a way only extreme force could cause. Efforts to revive her failed, and at 8:13 a.m., she was declared dead. Nurses immediately contacted the police. Detective Riley Hart, known for her soft voice and sharp instincts, arrived quickly and read the room in seconds. She looked at Ava, lying still beneath a blanket far too white for the situation, her little back arched unnatural. Her bruises blooming like warnings no one saw in time. Hart questioned Evan first. He looked pale, trembling, swallowing hard between sentences, but his story didn't match the evidence. He claimed Lydia left for work at 6:15 a.m., they watched cartoons, Ava climbed up on the couch and suddenly fell. But Lydia's timecard showed she clocked in at 5:52 a.m., and when Hart asked Evan what Ava was doing before the fall, what she said, what she wore, what cereal they ate, his answers twisted and shifted. It was the honey cereal, or maybe chocolate. The cartoon with the dog, or maybe the cat. She fell backward, or maybe sideways. Lies, Hart thought. Not because the details were wrong, but because the details were floating. Meanwhile, the autopsy revealed the truth. Ava's spine had been violently separated at the lumbar region, a catastrophic injury that required tremendous force. Not a fall. Not a stumble. Not fate. Something deliberate. Something violent. Something done by someone she trusted. When Hart pulled Evan's record, she discovered he had once been investigated for injuring another child, a toddler who suffered a broken collarbone while alone with him. The case was closed for lack of evidence, but history never repeats by coincidence. In the interrogation room, Evan folded into himself, arms crossed, then uncrossed, rubbing his jaw, looking everywhere but at Hart. "I loved her," he said. "I would never hurt her. Kids get hurt. It was an accident." Hart didn't flinch. "Walk me through it again," she said calmly. And he did. But each version changed, different place, different position, different reason. She let him talk because she knew guilt often reveals itself in the retelling. Then she leaned in and said the sentence that cracked him open, "You keep explaining what happened, but you haven't once asked what Ava felt before she died." Evan froze. Hart went on, voice steady but devastating. "The medical examiner told me Ava was in unbearable pain. A pain that makes a child scream. And someone watched her suffer." His breathing faltered. "She didn't fall, Evan," she whispered. "Someone threw her." And that was when he broke, not because he loved Ava, but because he realized the truth he'd buried under panic and excuses had finally surfaced. While Evan unraveled in the interrogation room, forensic teams made the discovery that sealed his fate. Behind the couch, low on the wall, was a fresh circular dent, perfectly aligned with Ava's lower back. Embedded in the indentation were fibers from her pajamas and faint traces of blood that matched her injuries. The wall told the story Evan refused to admit. When Hart confronted him with the evidence, his facade collapsed. "She wouldn't stop crying," he whispered. I didn't mean to push her that hard, it was just once, but a single act of anger had ended a child's life. He insisted again that it was an accident, but no one believed him anymore. Evan Ward was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. His trial lasted just 5 days. Lydia, heartbroken and hollow-eyed, sat through every moment, clutching Ava's favorite stuffed animal. The jury took less than 2 hours to reach a unanimous guilty verdict. Evan was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice was served, but justice cannot resurrect innocence. The town of Pinecrest built a small memorial garden called Ava's Corner, painted in her favorite colors. Lydia visits often, leaving small toys and whispering apologies to the daughter she will never hold again. And Detective Hart still thinks about the case, not because of the brutality, but because of the silence. The 5 minutes Evan waited before calling 911. 5 minutes where Ava could have been saved. 5 minutes no one, not Hart, not Lydia, not the courts, can ever explain. And that leads to the lesson Hart wrote at the very end of her case file: a line as painful as it is true, the worst tragedies happen not in the moment of violence, but in the moments when someone chooses silence over saving a life. So here is the question we are left with, and it's one that every viewer must answer for themselves. How many warning signs do we overlook before it's too late to protect someone who can't protect themselves? What really happened in those 5 minutes, and why did Daniel wait? What do you think he was doing? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and check out our other true crime stories. Take care and see you in the next one.